OpenAI 连开12天直播发布新品，人工智能又有重大突破了。但是你们知道 GPT 的每次重大更新背后其实是另一个人的跃迁，人工智能的奶爸黄仁勋。那今天和黄仁勋的首部独家传记作者对谈，这本书里黄仁勋说他是中国人，那他为什么这么说？他和马斯克、贝佐斯又有什么不同？英伟达的市值是不是过高了？想了解英伟达和黄仁勋最真实的一面，这期节目有点长，但是值得看完。那今天的嘉宾 Steven Wait 不仅仅是世界知名的科技记者、作家，还是10年的投行从业者，对于英伟达的投资预期也很有见地哦。来听听他的独家爆料。
Hi, Steven. Hi, I'm Colin.
How are you? Good to meet you.
Nice. Okay, first question. There is such a sentence in the introduction part of this book. Jason Huang said, deep down, I will always be an immigrant, and deep down, I'm still Chinese. It's really said by Jason, and it seems that he never said so in public. I'm really curious about the details of this conversation.
Okay, so this was a fascinating conversation that I had with Jensen. We met at a diner chain known as Denny's, where he had worked when he was a teenager washing dishes and like cooking eggs, really grunt work. He had been living in the United States at this time for about 4 or 5 years, and he would kind of eat his way through the entire menu of the restaurant to try and familiarize himself with American food. And so I asked, at what time did you stop feeling like an outsider? When did you stop feeling like an outsider? And he said, basically, to this day, I feel like an outsider in American culture. Once you're an immigrant, you're always an immigrant. You're always an outsider. And then he kind of stopped and he said, I'm always Chinese. Kind of inside, I'm always Chinese. He spoke Taiwanese, obviously, at home growing up. I think his parents still don't speak English that well. So even though he ultimately completely assimilated to American culture and became, in fact, the most successful American businessman of his era, I think inside he still feels like an outsider to an American culture and perhaps culturally closer to China. When we met at the diner for breakfast, he ordered like 7 or 8 plates of food, like enough food to feed 6 people. And he sort of indicated to me that this was part of his kind of Chinese heritage emerging, ordering just a ton of food at the restaurant.
我问这个问题，其实是因为这个问题对我们中国人非常重要，所以希望你能理解。因为中国的很多年轻人会被黄仁勋所鼓舞。It is mentioned in the book after the interview, you were severely scolded by Jason. Was he angry because the AI theory goes against his business? How do you feel at that time? And this awkward conversation affected the publication of this book?
Yes, this was one of the most unusual interviews I've ever had. And I've interviewed a number of corporate executives. But, usually when you interview a powerful person, they have kind of like press people and lawyers around them, and they're kind of very filtered. They're not unguarded. Jensen is very open. And I really appreciate about this. He will really tell you exactly what he's thinking. He's not holding back at all. I had pushed him in several times in several interviews to try and give me his thoughts about the risks these powerful AI systems might pose. And he had always dismissed this question. And I think I just asked it, or maybe he was asked this question by journalists one too many times. And he just kind of erupted at me and got very angry and really started to kind of yell at me and scold me. But he does this with people, and he does this with all of his employees. It's very much something that he does, and he usually does it on purpose. So while I kind of felt a little like shocked, maybe I was being let inside of Jensen's inner circle, that if he felt comfortable enough with me to scold me in this way, he trusted me. But I think that meant that he was letting his guard down. Jensen, I think, genuinely feels that there is nothing to fear from these systems, and that to oppose them would be like opposing agriculture or irrigation or the steam engine. The power of this technology is immense, and I think in his mind, it will have a transformative effect on human society, and that effect will be almost entirely positive. So I think when people ask him questions like, hey, should we slow down? Are there risks here? He feels like we're holding the human species back in a way, and he doesn't want to do that. I genuinely think that's what he thinks. I don't think it's just about business.
而且书里面还问到过，把他跟Elon来做比较。作为商业领袖，我认为他和Elon都是独一无二的，所以他会不会对这个点感到生气呢
？Jensen is a much nicer guy than Elon Musk. The difference is the way to think about Jensen is he's kind of like a general in an army. or a coach of a sports team. He's not trying to be your friend. He's trying to push you harder and further than you ever thought you could go. Musk does this too, but Musk really rules by fear. He will fire entire divisions of his company if he feels they're underperforming. Jensen would never do that. He would never do that. He really wants to keep people in the loop, almost like a family, like a team. This is a big difference between them. They are pushing you hard. And even with me, I don't work for Jensen, but I think he just pushed me as hard as he could because he wanted this story to be the best it could be. If you gave me the choice, I would much rather work for Jensen than Elon.
This book is really wonderful. And if you were recommend it to everyone in just one sentence, what would you say? One sentence.
This is a book about the man who made AI possible.
Okay.
He made this real. Okay. And without him, it could not exist. I know this is more than one sentence, but the man who made AI possible, and I was talking to Bill Dawley, his chief scientist from Stanford, formerly the head of the Stanford University Computer Science Department. And he said, without Jensen, we'd be 10 or 20 years behind.
这本书其实我是在去华为的发布会上看的，然后我在飞机上一口气读完，它真的很有趣啊，非常的适合普通人去了解 AI， 了解英伟达，了解黄仁勋。当然我在飞机上看的时候有种时空交错的感觉，从英伟达穿越到了我们中国的华为，感觉科技的理论其实是没有边界的。技术本身有，但是理论没有。有的国家走得快，有的国家在追赶，但是我们都在做改变世界的事情。所以这本书里面，刚才您提到非常多黄仁勋的管理之道，我觉得也是适合年轻人去看这本书的一个原因。
Yes. If you go into NVIDIA, especially today, probably at the beginning it was mostly Americans. Now it's 30,000 people from all over the world, even in their San Francisco headquarters. I think probably Americans are a minority. I don't think they're 50% of the workforce. And NVIDIA is basically, they don't manufacture anything. That's all done by their partners in Asia. It's basically a giant laboratory that invents the future every day. So it's an incredible place to work. And to do that, they have to bring in talent from just all over the world.
So what kind of people should read this book and what we can gain from it?
Yeah, entrepreneurs, obviously. This guy is the iconic businessman of our era, of the last 10, 15 years. He's taken a business that was a niche business that was small, that really looked like kind of like a second tier business, and transformed it into the most valuable company on the planet. So anyone who has any interest in business, management, entrepreneurship, venture capital, investing, stock market, anything really touching capitalism in any way, really ought to read this book because there's just so much in there. He's the iconic businessman of the time. I think for technologists, scientists, and entrepreneurs, there's also a lot of lessons here. So anyone with an engineering or technical background, I think, is going to relate to Jensen immediately. Jensen, even though he's a very successful businessman, really he's an engineer. He didn't go to business school. He went to engineering school and he worked as a microchip designer. Everything he learned about business was basically engineering principles that he turned around and kind of re-engineered himself to be the perfect CEO, which is kind of an unusual thing to do. And then, you want to reach the broadest audience possible. So there is a great story here. Jensen's story is fascinating. So if you're just kind of interested in a biography of a very interesting person, it's a good read. And, I kind of say this in the introduction, but AI is going to touch every field. I don't think anyone is going to, manual labor, it's going to transform with robots. It's going to change scientific research. It's going to change art, marketing, design. It's already changing these fields. No field is going to be left kind of untouched. If you want the story of how we got there, how did this world-changing technology come about? That's the story of this book.
知道为什么我们中国人非常喜欢看这种名人传记，像乔布斯传记、埃隆马斯克的传记都非常的受欢迎。因为在中国信奉一句话叫三人行必有我师，就是我们喜欢从成功的人身上去学习啊，然后可以快速的应用到我们的工作中。会有一种偏见，认为中国人善于复制，但我认为这是我们非常好的一种学习能力，也是这种学习能力其实成就了今天的中国。
For sure. And Jensen, you can learn a lot from following and studying Jensen, no question. But I think he would describe himself as a student. I mean, he's always willing to learn a completely new field. He didn't have a background in artificial intelligence. He never studied it at school, and no one was expecting his business to become an AI business. It was his flexibility and his ability to kind of return to square one and learn anew. Part of that philosophy is to always yourself kind of be humble and be a student and be willing to learn something new. I think a lot of people can say that, but he actually does it. And I think that's what's the most impressive thing.
就书里面提到黄仁勋，他说他是一个普通人，那你觉得他普通人的点在哪里？和你眼中觉得他最不普通的点是什么？因为你离他比较近，我们很好奇。
He's ordinary in the following sense. He has a wife and a kid and 2 dogs. And I think when he leaves work, he goes home and he lives an ordinary life. I don't think he lives like a jet-setting billionaire. I mean, he's got a big house, he's got fast cars, but he just doesn't live that lifestyle, really. I think he is very much a family man, and I think he really enjoys kind of like his time alone with his wife and his dogs and his kids. So in this sense, he is an ordinary man. But, and I kind of say this in the introduction, his work ethic is insane. And his intellect is world-class. He's one of the smartest people I've ever met. I think his ability to understand and quickly grasp a new concept and then apply it kind of in real time is unparalleled. And everybody who works with him, including professors, PhDs in computer science, brilliant people, are constantly amazed by his ability to do this. His work ethic, his intellect, and then ultimately his courage, his belief in himself and his ability to gamble on himself. Those are unique qualities. And the combination of those 3 things, each is rare on its own, but the combination of all 3 has got to be 1 in a million. It's just an incredible combination. Compared to Elon Musk, he's normal, right?
其实我在读这本书的时候，我有感觉黄仁勋是一个很矛盾的人。他一边说他希望这本书他死后再出版，然后一边又给你介绍了很多人。你是怎么看这个问题的？他这么矛盾。
I think Jensen is funny in this way because I watched him speak once in front of a conference of 400 people. And Jensen has probably given at this point 1,000 public talks in his life, if not more. But he got nervous. He started to kind of look around and shift on his feet. And he genuinely just didn't want to be up there. He doesn't like public speaking. It's true. He's excellent at it. He's a very good public speaker, world-class, really great public speaker, but it's a performance and he doesn't actually like to do it. And so I think I see in him this conflict, almost an unexamined conflict between wanting to be a regular person, wanting to just do your job well, wanting to show up to work and get the work done to the best of your ability and just be the best you can. But there's also ambition inside, some internal drive for greatness. And I think he keeps that maybe even a little hidden, maybe even from himself. I don't want to psychoanalyze him or anything, but it sometimes seemed to me like a secret internal contract with himself. He was never going to let it go to his head. He was never going to let all the money and the accolades go to his head if the moment required it. And that is really unusual. I mean, Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, they don't have that. They are very full of themselves. Jensen, I think, was always ready to sort of reset and take it down a notch. And so I think this is what added to some of his discomfort about being kind of like having a biography. He really doesn't like to be in the spotlight. So much of NVIDIA's stock price right now is not based on what they have done. It is based on what people think they will do in the future. And so they have to execute almost perfectly from this point forward just for their stock price not to crash. And I think this puts Jensen under a tremendous amount of pressure. And it puts his employees under a tremendous amount of pressure. So I think in some ways they were also feeling like, it's hard to be number one. It's harder than we thought. He always was the guy who kind of liked to maybe sneak away and go to just get noodle stalls at some roadside restaurant, right? Or just go to the movies by himself on a Saturday. And now he's too famous, right? He can't really go anywhere without a security detail. He's too rich and famous. And I think he resents that a little bit. I don't think that was his goal.
其实在这本书里面有介绍到非常多黄仁勋很多不为人知的小故事。虽然他是一个很好的演讲家，但是他并不想当一个演员。所以说我们可以从这本书里面去找到他没有表演的痕迹，因为这是1对1的私下的访谈。 强烈的推荐大家，如果想要了解黄仁勋更多的不是在演讲台上的那一面的时候，就去看这本书。他作为一个一流的企业的企业家，他需要把这家企业带向伟大，他甚至需要把 AI 带向伟大，把 AGI 实现。那么接下来我就想跟 Steven 探讨一下，就是更多的我们宏观的跟 AI 相关的一些问题，也是我们中国的网友非常关心的。然后在这本书的后半部分其实也有提到，首先在现在的世界范围内，目前中国和美国其实都在 all in AI。那与此同时，其实世界范围内还有很多人认为 AI 是泡沫，认为 scaling law 到了尽头。那基于你和 Jason 的互动，以及你对于 AI 的趋势判断，你认为有这个泡沫风险吗？
Okay, so I do not think this is a bubble. I think, yes, the stocks are up a ton, right? And then you have to ask, well, is this a real breakthrough or is it something else? Every academic computer scientist I talked with regards this as a civilizational advancement, like on the level of like the steam engine or the airplane. Yeah, the stock market can always go down. Okay, that can always happen. But I don't think this is a situation where we're going to see a lot of investment and then 20 or 30 years from now, like nothing comes from it. It's not like what I've seen with cryptocurrencies or even in the past with kind of the early dot-com boom. This doesn't resemble that. It's a different kind of technology that functions in a completely different way and is really revolutionary, that we invest too much in it up front and we don't earn enough coming back out and the stocks go down. That can definitely happen. That can always happen. For any variety of reasons. But I don't think it's like the tulip mania is just amazing. And they see that. This year, 2 Nobel Prizes have been awarded. The Nobel Prize in Chemistry is for protein folding, which was solved by AI. That was a problem people have been trying to solve for 30 or 40 years. The protein folding AI can, in a couple minutes, do what you would earn a PhD for over 6 years. So these advances are real. They're very real, and it's going to change a great number of things. NVIDIA's stock can go down. I'm not saying it's a guarantee that it's going to go up forever. There's a lot of expectation baked in. A great number of things can happen, and the stocks can come down. I don't think this technology is going away. I think under almost any foreseeable future circumstances, we will see sustained investments from this technology, and I think it's going to revolutionize economic productivity. And I think it's going to deliver things that they're just going to blow our minds. They're just going to be incredible when it works. Now, hey, maybe we'll come back in 5 years and you'll read this book where we were way too optimistic about AI. It did hit the scaling law limit. It wasn't able to deliver what we thought it would. And a lot of people lost a lot of money. And I thought about that possibility when I was writing the book. I used to work in financial markets. For 7 years, I traded stocks. So I know what a bubble looks like too. And I just ultimately had to say to myself, I don't think that's what's happening here. This doesn't feel like past technology hype cycles. When I look at what the technology can do, but this one, from the moment I first used it, it was like magic. And then it just kept getting better.
我觉得 AI 已经改变了我们很多的领域，甚至现在 AI 已经可以自己生成数据，自己去训练自己。那我相信接下来也会迎来像生物领域、攻克癌症以及能源的突破。当数据、算力以及能源，包括跟我们普通人的链接都能够突破不再是问题的时候， AI 就不再是泡沫了。那你认为它有过那么一瞬间怀疑过 AGI 或者 ASI 也许不可能嘛？因为他对人工智能的这种坚定是全部都来自于他的商业愿景，还是他自己100%的笃定？
Jensen always reasons from first principles. Emotion does not factor into the way that he thinks about the world. Neither does hope, honestly. He simply looks directly at what's possible from the technology, talks to a great deal of people across a great variety of scientific and technological fields, synthesizes all this information, reads everything he can, and then places his bet. So when he places bets like this, the reason he has confidence is that he has done just an exceptional amount of research, starting at the level of the transistor, all the way up through mathematics, all the way up through software, all the way up to the human interface. And very few people can do that. Very few people understand it from the transistor up like he does. He has certainly been wrong, and he will tell you this a great number of times. I think what sets him apart is when he is wrong, he is also very quick to just admit, hey, I was totally wrong. We're pulling the plug on this and going in a different direction. Particularly in the first half of his career, that happened all the time. I mean, he had to do that 4 or 5 times where he sort of went in a different direction and came back. I asked him once, what would have happened if AI hadn't worked out? What do you think would have happened to your company? And he was like, yeah, maybe we would have been forced to retreat at some point if it hadn't worked out. But I know I would have found the next thing. I know I wouldn't have been caught flat-footed. I know I would have found the next thing. So that confidence, I think, comes from a belief in his own intellect, which is very good. And he's different from Elon Musk in this way. But Musk is going to go backwards, right? Musk starts on the surface of Mars. And then he says, well, how do I come backwards from the surface to Mars to where I'm standing now to get to Mars? Jensen is totally the opposite. He asks, what's in front of me right now? What am I holding in front of me right now? And where can it go? Where can it go? And he'll follow it anywhere. I mean, he didn't know he was going to be an AI entrepreneur, but once he reasoned from first principles that was going to happen, it was very easy for him to shove all of his chips, all the money and all of NVIDIA's resources behind him.
其实从这本书里面我有感受到啊，黄仁勋是他在不停的找确定性，而不是说他认定了一个确定性以后去坚持，而是不停的找。其实刚才您谈到说如果说人工智能未来不可以了，他还会去找到他下一个确定性，这一点非常触动我，就觉得创业者需要有自己的坚持，但是也需要跟随趋势去做变化。这本书里面其实我看到他只用了几天时间就决定把英伟达从一家游戏显卡公司变成一家 AI 工厂，专注于 AI 的公司。其实那么这么看起来，他其实在这本书里面可能说的夸张了一点。
Very fast. It was like 2 emails. I'm serious. That's what they tell me.
Wow.
It was very fast. Yeah.
2 emails. 2封邮件。
对，2封邮件，然后就定了这个决定。
He sent out an email, I think on a Friday. This is what his vice president told me. He's like, yeah, we got an email on a Friday, which would have been about 2014, saying, we're going to become an AI company. And then next Monday, they were an AI company. But he will do that. If he sees an opportunity, this is one of the reasons he succeeds. If he sees an opportunity, he will move so fast. Like lightning speed toward it. His ability to pivot rapidly toward a good idea makes him almost unique. Ilya Sutskever at OpenAI was also able to do this. This is the guy who coded ChatGPT. This was another strength of his. He was working on another project, and he saw the transformer architecture that's used to build most contemporary powerful AIs, dropped everything he was doing, and 2 days later was just shamelessly copying the transformer architecture because it worked better. And that's rare. It's very hard, actually, for most business executives to do that. But Ilya could do it, and Jensen can do it as well.
中国也以速度著称吧，上面提到了大家都在这个人工智能的竞赛场上，那中美其实是跑在最前面的2个国家。那你认为就是中国在这场人工智能的竞赛里面最大的优势是什么，以及我们要快速提升什么，最难克服的困难又是什么？
Well, the advantage, as you say, is part just how quickly China moves. This book came out so fast. I couldn't believe it. Another massive advantage is brain power and multiplied by the number of people. So you guys are genuinely producing far more highly skilled technical engineers over the course of a year than probably the United States is in any given year. Maybe what is a disadvantage, or maybe what is a little harder, is that the U.S. really can draw from anywhere in the world. So you go inside NVIDIA, and there are literally people from every continent in the world. And usually they're the top graduates of, say, a technical university in India, one in China, one in Japan, South Korea, Europe, the Middle East, Israel. So they're really coming from all over to congregate in essentially this kind of like high-tech design laboratory. I've never been to China, I should say, so I'm a little reluctant to say what you should or should not do because I don't really know what it's like on the ground. But I do think one challenge for China is replicating that kind of like global talent pool. And I think that's one of the things that makes Silicon Valley in general work really well.
其实依赖于我们的人口以及我们的市场，我们有足够的场景和数据，我们可以通过去训练更小的垂直模型来打破算力的限制。中国会在应用领域会有非常强的优势。就像您说的，第一梯队的人才缺失才是我们最困难的事情，因为这一点非常的依赖科研环境和教育。我们要继续加油了。所以超级应用我认为可能会更大的概率在现有的一些应用里面去裂变而来。那么我们非常期待接下来会发生魔法时刻。今天我基本的问题都问完了，刚才 Steven 有谈到没有来过中国，希望有机会能够邀请你来中国，然后我带你体验一下中国不一般的美食美景，以及带你逛一逛我们中国的一些科技公司和一些企业家，包括像华为啊、阿里啊，以前我的公司，欢迎你来中国，谢谢。
I would love that.
Thank you.
That's so nice.